how to improve your English writing skills. Hey there, we're talking about the integrated learning system, and in the step-by-step guide, we are on step number 7. Quick review. You've got your text and audio, you've listened to the audio, you've read through it, marked up the words you don't know, study them, learn what they mean, learn new expressions, master the grammar points that stick out and interest you, focus on improving your pronunciation, and then in this step, you're going to practice your writing skills using the same text and audio that you've been listening to, reading, and studying. So, new skill that we're going to develop and focus on, important for communication, because when you focus on your writing, it will not only help you learn to write better and improve your spelling skills, which are extremely important for speaking and communicating in English correctly and proficiently, but also in this step, as you practice your writing through the steps that I'm going to show you, you are also going to be preparing yourself for speaking. All right? So basically, there's 3 things that you can do with your text to develop your writing skills. Number 1, you can copy a section of the text. That's right. Just take a paragraph or a couple sentences and practice writing them out. Especially if you're just beginning and you have trouble spelling or writing in English. As you practice writing and copy your text, it will help you pay attention. It will force you to pay attention to the words that you see, how those words are joined together, and how those words are spelled. Because there's nothing worse than writing something and discovering that you wrote words incorrectly, that you misspell them. So the first thing you can do with your text is simply copy it. Okay, so take some time out to copy out a section by hand. Just look at a sentence and then try to copy it, and then look back and see if you wrote everything correctly. Did you write the words in the right order? Did you spell all of the words correctly? And then do the next sentence. If doing whole sentences is too hard for you, then focus on short phrases. But the idea here is just to practice your writing skills by copying the text that you've been studying and paying attention to make sure that you're able to spell the words that you're learning. The second thing that you can do with your text is create new sentences. Okay? So let's take a look here. By creating sentences, you are taking the sentences that you saw in the text, but you're modifying them to create new sentences, to learn new ways to express yourself. So one thing you can do is substitute words in your phrases. The simple way to form proper sentences in English. So if you don't know how to form sentences well and join the words, this is a way to start. And in a moment, I will give you some examples from my French lesson here, okay? But I want you to understand that this is basic grammar practice. At its very basics, you're learning how to join words correctly. So in the context, if you see a sentence like, he ran to the door, you can change the verb ran for other verbs. He walked to the door. He jumped to the door, and so on. So if there's other verbs that you don't know how to say, you can learn them and then practice inserting them into that sentence. Or you can even change where he ran to. So the sentence was, I ran to the door. Then you can change it and say, I ran to the house. I ran to the window. I ran to the tree, and learn other words to practice those sentences. Well, this can seem pretty basic, but it's just a way for you to learn new sentences to express yourself. So if you take a basic sentence structure and then practice switching words around, substituting the words that you use, it will help you develop your speaking by developing those basic sentence structures that you need to practice. And by basic, I don't just mean simple. I'm giving you some simple examples here, but these can be as complex as you want. So whatever your level is, when you see a sentence that you find interesting, you can practice working with it in this way. The other thing you can do is practice joining phrases into longer sentences. I've mentioned this before, and you've probably already watched Mauri's video where he talks about how he did this when he was learning English. Mauri was an English student who joined us. He was actually Junior's student. You've seen Junior's videos as well. So Mauri practiced speaking English, developed his skills well, and now we recorded a video where he shared some of his tips. And this was one of the things that he mentioned, where he would take simple sentences and then practice putting them together to develop longer, more complex and fluent. So he talked about how he would take two simple sentences and join them together to create longer and more complex sentences to sound more fluent and natural. So if you haven't seen that video, you can go watch it as well. It's available on the blog and on our YouTube channel. So let me show you some examples here from my French lessons on how you can substitute words. Remember when I showed you that text that I was studying, and in that I had highlighted questions in red because at the time I was wanting to know how to ask questions in French. And there were several questions in that text, and one of them was the sentence right here, why are you angry? Pourquoi es-tu irrité? And so I just practiced changing the word irritated, substituting it for other words that I knew in French, like happy, jealous, furious, and stuff like that. So you basically just take a word in the sentence and substitute it for other sentences. So that way when I got ready to speak and wanted to know how to ask why are you? And then I would know the basic sentence structure. Another one where he asked, where is your brother Abel? I practiced changing the word brother for other family members. So where is your father Abel? Where is your sister Mary? Where is your brother Dennis? So the substitution exercises are just simply taking a basic sentence structure and changing words so that you practice forming new sentences. All right, so you're not yet creating your own sentences, you're just practicing with the sentences that you're learning. So that's the second way you can practice writing in French, by creating new sentences, either by substituting words or joining shorter phrases into longer phrases. Now let's talk about transcribing your text. This is an excellent way to not only practice your writing skills, but also develop several other skills at the same time. So the first thing you're going to do is transcribe the audio that you're studying. And the second thing you're going to do is correct your transcription. This is important because it's going to help you see where you're making mistakes and learn from them. Because most of the time students complain, oh, I don't have anybody to help me learn English. I need somebody to correct me. And this way it will set you free so you can correct yourself. So let's get started. You transcribe the audio that you are studying. We just go through, listen to the audio, write down what you think you hear, and then focus on short chunks so you don't get overwhelmed, okay? So listen to your audio. Remember that you have the tools in VLC Media Player. You can use the AB loop function. So choose a short section of the audio, just hit play, click the loop A button, and then it's going to play. And at the end of the sentence, you click the loop B button. So it'll just loop in that section. Just let that sentence loop, listen to it, and then when you're ready, write what you think you're hearing. Don't look at the text. Don't look at the original text that you were reading previously. Just listen to it and write what you think you're hearing. All right? Now, this is important because it forces you to pay attention to the sounds that you're hearing in the language. I know a lot of people don't like this. They feel uncomfortable because they think they're making mistakes and they're afraid that by making mistakes, they're going to reinforce them and, always make those mistakes. That's not true. Making mistakes is not bad. Making mistakes is good if you're learning from them. Now, if you didn't learn from them, if you just made lots of mistakes and always wrote incorrectly, that would be bad. But you're going to go back and correct your transcription in the second phase here, and you're going to learn from your mistakes. Okay, so it's going to force you to pay attention to the sounds that you're hearing, and as you do that, you're going to be picking up on those word chunks. Remember, we talked about the importance of learning collocations and phrases and expressions so you can express yourself better and more proficiently. So also it's going to help you learn to spell words correctly because you're going to misspell some words, spell them wrongly. That's okay. When you go back to correct them, you're going to see the words that you're misspelling and you can practice them. It's like when you make a common mistake or speaking error. For example, just the other day, I was recording some videos and I used the word so a lot. And I didn't really even notice it. And then someone said, David, you use so a lot. When you start a new sentence, you use so. And it's a very rough way to start a new sentence because it sounds like you're going to change the topic and you're just speaking and continuing on and it sounds strange. And so by paying attention to that, I was able to change that in my speaking habits. And a couple days later, that person came back and said, hey, David, I've noticed that you aren't using that word so as much. So I thought that was pretty cool. So basically, it forces you to pay attention to what you're hearing and what you're writing so that you can improve your English skills. And there I go using so again. All right. And as you focus on your transcription, you can take a short section, a paragraph, or a couple of sentences. Initially in the beginning, choose a section of your text that's about a minute or 2 minutes long. I noticed for me that it took me about 20 minutes to transcribe a 2-minute audio. That was when I was in level A2. Obviously, as you develop, you'll be able to do that faster. But you don't have to worry about transcribing your whole audio, okay? If your audio is 5-10 minutes long, that's okay. Just take a short section of it and focus on that section. And then when you're done, if you have more time, you can continue on and do the rest. But the objective here isn't to transcribe the whole text. This is just one way to develop your abilities. Now, once you've gone through, you've listened to it, write down what you think you heard as much as you feel you're comfortable doing that day, as much time as you have available, 15, 20 minutes, then you can go and correct your transcription. Now, this is important. Just writing and transcribing is a good way to practice, but it's important to go back and correct yourself because it's through correcting your mistakes and errors that you're going to improve and become better because you will be aware of the mistakes you're making and the things that you need to improve. I personally like using a word processor that tracks changes. Let me show you why and a couple you can use. You have two options here. If you're working on a computer, you can use Microsoft Word. If you're working online, you can use a website like Draft. Now, if you're using Microsoft Word, what you can do is before you start correcting your transcriptions is click the Review tab. Okay, let me show you how that works here. Under the Review tab, you're going to have the option to track your changes. It looks like this. You see that? The Review tab, and then Track Changes. So by tracking changes, once you make your correction, you can go back and see what you spelled incorrectly and what words you didn't write. Maybe you thought it was one word, but they were really saying another word. And if you're using an online program like Draft at draftin.com, then you'll be able to track your changes. So that's important. Before you begin correcting, make sure you turn that option on. Then, once you're ready, go ahead and compare what you wrote to the original text you studied. So you're going to look at the text that you transcribed, those words and sentences that you wrote, and you're going to look at the original text, the one you were reading before, and you're going to compare what you wrote to the original text. And you're going to see, that word I wrote incorrectly. That word I misspelled. I thought he was saying this word, but he was really saying something else. Or you're going to write one word, but it's really two words, just that he said it quickly so you didn't understand it. So this will force you to pay attention to the sounds and the spellings and everything that's going on. So at this point, you can correct the mistakes you made. So as you're looking at the transcription and you compare it to the original, wherever you see that you misspelled something, go back and correct it in your transcription. Transcribe any misspellings, any wrong words, anything you see that you wrote differently, and then observe those changes. Because as you observe them, it will allow you to analyze the difficulties that you're facing, which means that you're going to see where you're making mistakes so you can correct your mistakes on your own, and you don't have to depend on a teacher or someone else to show you what you're doing wrong and what you need to improve on. Most students, I've noticed, don't even bother to learn from teachers' corrections anyways. A lot of times I will correct students' work, and then I'll notice that they don't even look it over and try to learn from it. So if you do this, you will be 2 steps ahead of most other English students. So you'll be proactive, you will be looking at your own mistakes, learning from them, and this will allow you to learn much more quickly. Instead of just hearing something, okay, that's nice, and moving on, then take it, go back and focus on studying and practicing those issues. So you say, hey, this is a word I'm misspelling, so I'm going to go practice writing it 10 times so that I learn to spell it correctly. Or I'm going to write this down on a flashcard and study it every day. So let me show you some examples here in English, what this Review tab in Tracking Changes allows you to see when you're finished. Here's an example in English for you. Basically, wherever you see these mistakes in red is what you spelled incorrectly, and then it'll show you over here what you changed. So you can click on those and focus on them. Here's an example for my French learning. The same text that I showed you before. So for example, like this word, atom. So like this word here, I spelled the way I'm used to hearing it in Portuguese, and it's spelled like it is in English. Or on these words, I added things. Other words I left out. Other words I spelled incorrectly. I used the UN instead of the EN. Here on this word, you can see that I misspelled cane with an M instead of using an N. Here I added an EZ instead of the E with the accent. Here I forgot the accent. Here I forgot the letter S. You can see here in this word, I spelled it with an EZ instead of an ES. So it's little mistakes like this. You'll see, okay, these are the words that I'm spelling incorrectly. I'm spelling this with an NEZ, and it's actually spelled N, E with an accent, and an S. So then I can go back and study those mistakes that I'm learning and quickly make changes. Here, with this word, I left off an F. I only spelled it with one F instead of two, and I left off the letter A. So little words like this, as you correct your spelling, correct your mistakes, you will learn much more quickly. So here's what I did. Normally, when I was studying one of these texts, I would study the text on day one, and I would go through, practice the reading and the listening, and learn the vocabulary and grammar and expressions and practice my pronunciation and all that. And then I would set it aside. I would go on and study other things, my audio lessons and online lessons, and go to class and watch movies and listen to music. And then the next day, before I started studying a new text, that's when I would practice the transcription. That's when I would try to transcribe what I had seen the day before. So it would give me enough time between studying yesterday so that it wasn't all fresh in my mind, and it would allow me to review the things I had studied previously, but also not so long that I would have forgotten most of what I studied. All right, a lot of those things that I'd learned previously the day before were still in my mind, and it would allow me to review those same things, those same sounds and words and pronunciations and sentence structures, so that way I could learn them well and assimilate them and internalize them. So it really doesn't matter if you do this the same day. You can study and practice and then right away do your transcription if you want to practice your writing. But I found that for me it was better. I just preferred to do it the next day, so it would allow me to review a lot of the things I had learned previously and also practice right before going into the new text. Okay? I hope you found that helpful as you work on developing your writing skills. Remember, it's important for improving your writing and spelling skills as well as helping you to prepare for speaking. So those three things that you can do are copying a section of your text, taking the sentences in the text and creating new sentences by either substituting words or joining sentences together to make them longer and more complex, and also transcribing your text by listening to the audio and trying to write out what you hear. So transcribe it and then make sure you correct those transcriptions. As always, if you have any questions or something wasn't clear, please leave your feedback in the comments below so that way we can talk about them, discuss them, record new videos to answer your questions and help you out with this aspect of your English skills, helping you develop your writing. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and the blog so that way you're updated automatically by YouTube when we release new videos on this topic. Also, feel free to share this video with your family and friends, and they'll appreciate it. I appreciate you helping us spread these videos to as many people as are interested in learning English. Okay, so you have a great day. And in the next video, we're going to be talking about speaking, which will allow us to wrap up this phase of the step-by-step guide. And then we're going to get into evaluating your progress and talking about the integrated learning system recipes. So I'll see you then. Bye-bye.